Let's talk Majin Sonic. If you enjoy this video, please do subscribe for more. Sonic CD released in 1993 for the Mega CD and Windows 95. For many avid Sonic fans, Sonic CD had an air of mystery about it, because not that many people got the chance to play it at the time, certainly compared to the Mega Drive games. The Mega CD sold quite poorly, and having a home PC was still not super common at that point in time, so it was something of an enigma, with a time-travelling mechanic baked into the game, different soundtracks for different worldwide releases, an animated intro and ending produced by Toei, and awesome new characters like Metal Sonic and Amy Rose. Sonic CD was a game that many desperately wanted to play, but could only really read about in magazines. For me, Sonic CD lingered in obscurity until it received a wider release as part of Sonic Gems collection in 2005, which is when I first played it. There's one very mysterious element in Sonic CD though, that I want to talk about today. The game has a number of unlockable pieces of artwork accessible only by entering specific codes into the sound test mode. You can view an image of Tails, for example, or MC Sonic hanging out with Rastafari and Robotnik, and an incredibly cute piece of Sonic art. There's also this rather disconcerting image depicting a hybrid of Sonic and Batman. This image is modelled after a panel from 1991's Batman Judge Dredd Judgment on Gotham crossover comic. But then there's this image. The background shows a repeating image of a gurning human face superimposed on Sonic's body, and the Japanese text reads, "Infinite Fun, SEGA Enterprises." In the bottom right, it has a little signature, and it's signed Majin. At face value, it's not too spooky, right? Just a harmless little bit of fun. But this guy has become a bit of a horror icon in the Sonic scene, feared amongst the likes of Tails' doll. I think what makes this screen so scary is the accompanying music. The Sonic CD Japanese boss music, which plays when the image is shown, is fairly jovial. But the US version is much more sinister. That combination of the horrible music, the weirdness of this Sonic, and the rather ominous, endless fun message is enough to make this kinda creepy. I think the problem with Majin Sonic, as he's become known, and the issue of how scary he is that most people, myself included, probably saw the guy on YouTube or social media before actually seeing him in Sonic CD. I wanted to see if I could find first-hand evidence of people's raw Majin Sonic experiences, and I found a couple of fun testimonials on Sonic Retro that give a good idea of what it was like discovering Majin Sonic pre-internet. Here's one fun story that I found related to Majin Sonic on Sonic Retro. I can honestly say this scared the absolute shit out of me as a kid. Like, straight up couldn't be in the room with my Sega CD for a couple of months. It just filled me with such terror. I can even remember the day I saw it. My brother had taken me to Blockbuster Video, where I bought the Sonic 3 Sonic CD guide. The back had a cheats section. It was a dark, stormy day, and my parents and sister were out of town. My brother fell asleep in the front room of the house, and I went into my bedroom in the back on the other side and opened the book, going through the cheats one by one. I remember it was dim in my room. I had only the lamp on. The moment the screen popped up, I felt an icy terror in my veins. I remember running out of the room and begging my brother to go in and turn off the Sega, then spending the rest of the day closely next to him. This intrepid Sonic fan also engaged in a quest to get an early translation of the Majin Sonic screen. He says that eventually my neighbor's mom saw and said that it was Chinese, which was wrong. So my neighbor took it to a local Chinese restaurant and asked them to translate it. Of course, the only character they could recognize was the kanji at the bottom, which didn't help us at all, but we did finally learn it was Japanese. This is the thing, I didn't have this experience, but I can imagine if I did and I saw this as a kid, it would have been terrifying. This is all from a user called Cool Jerk, and he summarizes his thoughts by concluding that Margin's weird grin and his sunken eyes are akin to a sleep paralysis demon. But his experience, to be fair, wasn't a totally universal one. Another user replied with a more positive interpretation of Majin Sonic. As a kid discovering these cheats via a magazine, this image didn't creep me out at all. On a fuzzy aerial input, I thought he was like a mustachioed little uncle to Sonic or something. In fact, I ended up drawing a bunch of fan art of him, naming him after the Lollipop Man from my primary school. Jeffrey became Jeffahog. This was around 1997, I think. This is from user Animated AF, and they made perhaps the world's first Majin Sonic fan art. And yeah, it looks pretty darn cute. Furthest thing away from scary that I can imagine. So the jury is still out as to how creepy Majin Sonic really is. Like I said, I can imagine being petrified of the image if I saw it out of the blue on a dark night as a kid. But I imagine that that's not how 99% of people watching discovered Majin Sonic. I mean, what was your experience finding out about Majin? Did it horrify you? Maybe some additional lore can help to explain the creepiness. For example, a long-standing rumour has been floating around suggesting the screen is an anti-piracy screen, which is a bit of a meme to be honest, and also appears to be completely unfounded, but it does add a little to Majin's allure. I think maybe Majin's name also contributes to his mystique. I tried to look for references to Majin in older magazines to see what he was originally referred to, and the oldest that I could find was a Tips and Tricks magazine from 1994 that refers to Majin Sonic as Evil Man, which is pretty creepy. How did the name Majin Sonic come to stick? Well, the signature at the bottom right of the image reads Majin, hence the name Majin Sonic. But Majin in Japanese is a term that can be applied to a lot of different fantastical creatures, like a sorcerer, a genie, a human with supernatural powers. It can also be used to describe a demon or monster. In popular culture, you might recognize it. It has a negative connotation because of its association with Majin Buu in Dragon Ball Z, for example, and Babidi, the evil alien wizard. Ultimately, because of the relatively liberal way that you can translate Majin, another rumor spread across the internet that this screen was signed by the devil himself. Fun is infinite. SEGA Enterprises signed the devil. Now that is quite scary. On this very topic, I read a very interesting article on all of this by Clyde Mandolin from 2013, which seems to be one of the first places that really talked about Majin Sonic in depth. Mandolin explains in the article that the "fun is infinite" or "infinite fun" text in the image was a SEGA slogan at the time. It sounds creepy in the context of Majin Sonic, but it's perfectly innocuous. And the signature in the bottom right is that of designer Masato Nishimura, who includes his nickname Majin in a variety of games. So yes, it's signed by Masato Nishimura, not the devil or an anonymous demonic entity. The way that Majin is spelt here, specifically the katakana characters that are used, are a little weird and has resulted in a few other translations of the name, but I'll direct you to the article for more info on that. Inevitably, I think it was the sonic.exe and Creepypasta community that truly solidified Majin's role as a horror figure. Now, I'm not an expert on this side of the Sonic community, but I believe that Majin inspired a character called Creep, who first appeared in the sonic.exe Nightmare Beginning fan game, which was well received at the time, and presented a scary interpretation of Majin Sonic as this dark guardian of Sonic's mind. Majin was then further immortalized when he appeared in 2021's Friday Night Funkin' vs Sonic.exe mod, which also happened to showcase Fleetway Supersonic as well. Majin was celebrated at the time as a very fun addition. Now, this mod and videos of the mod were gigantically huge at the time, giving this modest little guy a huge, ridiculous amount of exposure. And it's probably the reason why I'm talking about him right now, to be honest. Ultimately though, Majin's image hasn't remained quite as universally horrifying as other figures like Tails' doll, because there's plenty of genuinely cute and charming interpretations of this character out there too. And to be honest, even as a creepy figure, I prefer the nuanced and ambiguous design of Majin over the more try-hard, creepypasta horror interpretations of Sonic. I mean, how many of these guys are just Sonic with bleeding eyeballs? Majin Sonic fan art is so variable, and I think that's great. SEGA even posted official Halloween artwork in 2021 of Sonic wearing a Majin mask, which was cool to see. Now, this piece of art does bring me to my final point, because there was always one eternal debate around Majin that swirled on for decades. The question was, does he have a mustache? The original art makes it hard to tell, and fans were split as to whether he had a tash or just some very prominent cheekbone shadows. It looks like in the SEGA official artwork, he does have a mustache, but Masato Nishimura himself replied directly to a fan to state that Majin does not, in fact, have a mustache. So, there you have it, the complete history of Majin Sonic. Please do share your thoughts and your anecdotes with me in the comments. I'd love to hear your experiences with Majin and what you think the scariest thing in the Sonic universe is. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.